Let's go to Canberra now and catch up with the Australian Strategic Policy Institute's Michael Shoebridge, who's been all over this as well. Good to talk to you again, Michael. Look, transparency and accountability are not words usually associated with the Chinese Communist regime in Beijing. What level of access do we think the WHO has been able to get in Wuhan more than a year after the pandemic began?
Well, Chris, I think the professor and you touched on some of this, but you could not get a more heavily stage-managed visit than the WHO team that has just been in Wuhan. It took till July last year to get terms of reference for this team agreed and together. That gave a central role to China in deciding when the visit happened and even who might be along. And then it took over a year from the outbreak for the visit to actually happen. And then when the team was there, they were absolutely curated. They didn't speak to a waiter that wasn't security cleared and pre-briefed. So they got the story that the Chinese government wanted them to get, and their press conference was used by the head of the Chinese COVID expert panel to retail the kind of propaganda that Beijing's given us about the virus came from anywhere but China and anywhere but Wuhan. Despite that, the WHO team has told us the outbreak started in Wuhan, and they've politely skirted around the fact that the Chinese authorities, the Chinese government, repressed knowledge of the outbreak and let it go into a pandemic.
Michael, the interesting thing is that no governments, no prominent figures around the world have accused China of doing this deliberately. Even media figures like myself who are talking about this a lot. No one suggests China did this deliberately. The suggestion is that it may have accidentally leaked through a cross-infection out of the Wuhan Institute of Virology. So why so much secrecy? Why so much paranoia from China? Is it because of these reports that that very same institute is involved in biological weapons research?
Well, whether it was a deliberate thing, an accident, or whether it was a natural evolution of the virus from a bat to another animal to a human, the bigger fact here, I think, is this pandemic started in Wuhan. It started with human-to-human transmission at a big enough scale that the Chinese knew about it in December. They lied about it. They covered it up. They arrested the doctor who tried to tell their government and the world. He died from the virus. Dr. Lee died a year ago, 3 days ago. And all of that is being airbrushed out of history in this desperate attempt from Beijing to say the virus originated anywhere else.
Well, as we heard just then from Professor Petrovsky, though, it's very important from a medical point of view to know the difference. There are different medical and global health implications depending on how this virus arose. Do you think our only hope of ever finding out for sure is through the work of Western intelligence agencies?
Well, I think not just the intelligence agencies. I really think forensic scientific data assessment has to happen. And it's not at all clear. In fact, you'd have to say there's every signal that the Chinese government is not willingly cooperating. So the kind of data they're handing over about the lab, about the virus, about their own actions, it's all stage managed and very carefully crafted to support their story. That's not what this kind of forensic assessment should be about. That's why the US State Department, in looking at the WHO report, hasn't just accepted everything they've said they'll drill right into all that data and use all the means that the US and other global health authorities have.
Michael, thanks for joining us.
Thanks very much, Chris.
Michael Shoebridge there from the Australian Strategic Policy Institute. This is the way China treats the rest of the world. There's a lot of apologists for China cheering it along because it signs up to the Paris Climate Agreement where it has to do essentially nothing. But this, in the here and now, is how China is treating the world, dealing with this global pandemic, millions infected, hundreds of thousands of people still dying. China is still covering up how it started, even though the medicos tell us that that information will be crucial in saving more lives.